It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the show. With me in the KFG studios, my fellow CFPs and business partners, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
We're in a retirement boom, or some have said
Some
anyway.
would say that, yeah.
That's right. More
Booming.
people are retiring now than ever. Where does that hit you, though? That's the question for today. How do you know if you're ready? Are you on pace to be ready for retirement? We're hitting that and more in this episode.
And we've got some great questions from fans of the show in the second half of the program. We're hoping to hit those. If you have a question for, number one, if you have needs, right? Because retirement planning is really got to be connected to your overall comprehensive financial planning. We're going to hit that too. It's not just a retirement decision. This is a major financial transition in your life. It touches every area of your financial life. So if you have needs, reach out to us. We'd love to help. Our team of CFPs would love to help you. If you have a question for the show, we can help you there as well. And you can find us a few different ways online, wisemoneyshow.com. And you can submit a question right there on the right, or raise your hand, say, hey, can you help me? Right there on the right. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. And then all over social media, that's where we get a lot of engagement from fans of the show. You can find us wherever you're at. We're there too. Just search the Wise Money Show. All right, have you guys heard this this prove me wrong challenge? Like, prove me wrong. You know, someone makes a bold statement on the Twitter and prove me wrong. So someone said this.
I haven't heard any of those.
Prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong.
So here's a good one I heard the other day. The stock market is wait. I actually wrote it down because it's good. The stock market's just a chart of wealthy people's feelings. Prove me wrong.
Is there a show right there?
Could be, absolutely. What about this one? We're not going to do a show about this, but frozen embryos is actually time travel. Prove me wrong.
What?
I know. People are crazy, especially on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right.
Hey, there are some very rich and wealthy and famous people who are having their bodies frozen.
Yeah.
So that they can come back to life.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that today.
There's a movie about that once.
So
right?
don't submit questions there. But listen, about a year ago, right at the beginning of this pandemic, I saw empirically several teachers reach out to me saying, I don't know if I feel comfortable being in the classroom. I'm close to retirement. Can I actually retire? And I went out, made the bold, risky prediction. More teachers are going to retire this year than ever before. And now I'm just looking around, and it just seems that more and more people that are close to retirement are just saying, all right, I got to be done. I'd like to be done. Am I ready to be done? And we want to help equip you if you're feeling that itch. But why? I think, prove me wrong. I think that we are in a retirement boom here. The data will show after the fact. Hindsight's 20/20, but why is that?
So you're predicting that 2020 will be a spike in
2020
retirement decisions?
And 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with that. We've been seeing the anecdotal evidence of it in a conference room with clients every week, right? There's new folks that are making a decision that, yeah, I'm ready to be done emotionally. Now, can you prove me wrong on whether or not I'm there financially? And that's what the financial planning process is all about, to help people figure out, how do you achieve the things that you've declared are now more important than ever? And to me, though, it's always people coming in who are close anyway.
Right.
Maybe they're accelerating their retirement by a couple years or so, but it's not a couple decades.
Correct.
Right. It's not people, just completely bailing out of the workforce or something out of fear necessarily, but they're saying, you know what, the risk reward trade-off is different now. I don't need to keep working anymore. That's my theory, and you get to help them prove it up, really.
One data point. Well, again, we're going to keep talking about why, but one data point. Now, this is about a month ago. You can find this video on the Wise Money YouTube channel, but I broke down the labor force trends. This is about a month ago. So the data is a month old, but I mean, it's not that changed. And so obviously we had an enormous drop in the labor force and labor force participation rate. Huge drop March and April. But then we've seen this V-shaped recovery in the market, and we look around, and depending on what's going on in your backyard, you might say, I'm feeling a V-shaped recovery in the economy too. The employment numbers, the labor force, only came back about half, and it's plateaued since July. Now, that could mean trouble ahead for the economy, honestly, and the markets. It could also mean a lot of people who have been close. Yeah, again, you're not looking at the new risks today in your 40s saying, well, I was 2 decades away from retiring, but listen, I want to retire right now, and I'm going to make it happen. But if you're 62 and you thought, well, I'll always work till 65, right now, because of, and I made this list, I mean, there are new quote unquote risks in the workforce. You might, I mean, I've got a client whose husband has cancer. It's terminal. And her job is such she's got to continue to go to work. And it's been hard because if she brings the coronavirus home, that could be, just awful, right? But so there are new risks in the workforce. Everything's changing. It's changing technology. Your processes are changing, and change for the average person is stressful. Mm-hmm. Right? And you couple that and everything with the stock market is way up, right? Yeah. I mean, and I don't know when you're consuming, listening to this, but the market came back with a vengeance.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And if you're looking at your portfolio and it just had a growth spurt this year, and suddenly that brings retirement within reach, it's a very viable thing to be looking at. But if I can play devil's advocate for a second here too, I'd also point out though that you call this a retirement boom, right? And it is partially because of just demographics.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is a continuation of a trend. There was a baby boom a few decades ago, and then it became a kindergarten boom, and then a college boom, and then a wedding boom, and now it's a retirement boom. And it's been going for about 10 years now. And so this is how nerdy I was this week. I was on the Social Security website looking at number of recipients, and you can chart this. And there's a distinct acceleration that happened in 2008 and 2009 with the number of recipients. Started growing at a faster pace. And every year there's more than 1 million new recipients that are added to the ranks in retirement.
Watch that data. That prove me right. Watch that
see
data.
The spike next year.
We're gonna see that spike.
Well, it's interesting because I have a good friend who owns a clothing store. He's since sold it and retired. But in 2008 and 9, he had some of his best years ever, because there were a number of people that thought that they were going to retire and hadn't updated their wardrobe for a while. And these people said, hey, because of what happened in the stock market, I'm not going to be able to retire. So it's interesting to me whether it's a forced retirement or an elective retirement, because what we seem to be seeing, if you're talking about anecdotal evidence, it seems like there's a lot of elective retirements. And so to me, the fascinating thing is these elective retirements with a lot of these folks, they're not retiring because they have to. They're not even retiring because they want to. As a matter of fact, most of them want to keep working. They just are done doing what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
And things have changed so much in what they're doing, they say, no mas.
And there certainly is. There certainly are plenty of examples where retirement's forced on folks in the energy sector, in the retail sector, in hospitality, where your job's being eliminated. So let's not forget that. Are you ready? And how do you know? How do you get ready? We've got all that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. You're at the Wise Money Show channel. What you're watching right now is our full 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this YouTube channel every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Also on our podcast, You can check that out as well. And then a couple local radio stations here in northern Indiana. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. If you like the content, smash that thumbs up button. And like I invited you at the beginning of the program, if you have questions or comments or whatever, connect with us, reach out, and leave comments as well. If 1 hour is way too long, we just keep the camera on during breaks and whatnot. But we've got lots of other content that we post throughout the week as well. So, again, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, smash that thumbs up button.
Okay, life hack. If 1 hour is way too long, go to the little 3-button thing and listen at 1.5 speed.
What do you mean?
The Micro Machine guy?
Yeah.
I have found that I have been speeding up videos here recently.
Some of our other CFPs here tell me they listen to the show on podcast at 1.5 times, and I'm like, how could you talk to me in normal? Because there's some that I listen to at 1.5, and if I ever meet these guys, I'm gonna be, why are you talking so slow?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Did she have a stroke?
I think YouTube is going to create an entire generation of very impatient people. In a conversation, it's just not going fast enough.
Well, yeah, but I mean, have you ever listened to the show?
Ours?
I mean, yes. For heaven's sakes, I listen to myself and I'm like, dude, talk faster, talk faster. What are you doing? Like, if I could, hopefully the technology will come out where you can decide which voices to speed up in a show like this. I'd put mine at like 3.7. Jeez.
All right. Let's roll. We're talking about being able to retire. So 5 factors,
But wait, did we finish? See, the thing that I wanted to talk about was the contemplative, the whole contemplative issue, because if you look at what's happening, the RV business is booming. They're going to ship in 2021. They think they're going to ship north of 500,000 units. Well, why is that? Because people are thinking. This is what I believe. People are thinking more about life and what they want their life to look like and be like than ever before.
Let's share that, and then we'll get into the planning.
Okay, that's a segment.
Josh, can you fix your mic? It's like right in your face. Oh.
Is that better?
Perfect.
You've never looked better, Josh.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Can we?
We've got a retirement boom happening right now. Our very own Josh Gregory made that claim. We're talking about, are you ready? Do you have a backpack on with a parachute in it? Or is it just full of, dirty laundry? I don't know. So we're going to help you retire right now if you're getting that itch. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, check it out. Search the Wise Money Show. Do us a favor, rate the show, leave a comment there as well. We appreciate it. There is empirical evidence, and the data, trust me, will back it up in a year or so. More people are retirement. The baby boomers are retiring, yes, but we are going to see a spike. We are seeing a spike right now. We're seeing a drop in the labor force. We're seeing a drop in labor force participation rate. I don't know, Josh, you said you were geeking out on the Social Security website. The labor force participation rate is now back close to where it was in the 70s.
Interesting.
In the 70s. That is scary. That is very scary from a Social Security standpoint. If you look at the chart, it's been trending down since it plateaued in the 90s. I'm saying that's technology. And then it was trending down from 2000 until today. I'm saying that's baby boomers, okay, and maybe some technology. But then we saw it drop like a rock. And it's now back at the same level it was in 1974, I believe. All right, enough of this optimism here. Are you ready to retire? Okay, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Well, but Kevin, I mean, more perspective on this retirement boom.
So from my perspective, as I look at this and I see what's happening, I believe that there probably is a retirement boom because the factors that you've already mentioned, right? The stock market's at an all-time high. There's uncertainty in the labor force. as far as what is my job going to be like and what am I doing. And I know folks that serve people in two different industries, just my own anecdotal evidence that they've said, I'm not doing that anymore. The people that we used to serve used to be fairly nice. They're not nice anymore. I don't want to do this. I still want to work, so I'm going to do something, but I'm not going to do that. So it's interesting to me. But the thing that has kind of captured my attention is because we live in the RV capital of the world, they're going to ship 500 plus units in 500,000 plus units in 2021. It's 400 and some thousand this year, which went from a shutdown, don't do anything for 6 weeks, to rip roar, and they're sending them out of there just as quickly as they can. And so that is always fascinating to me, how many RV units are going out the door. And it tells me that people have said, I'm probably not going to travel. So if your travel used to be, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to a city, I'm renting a car, I'm staying in a hotel room, I'm flying back home, that whole program is gone. Whether that was a long weekend or for a week or for whatever, or I'm flying to Florida and staying in a condo. Now you're probably taking your unit and going to a campground or some other place. And I've been surprised, as you talk to folks about this stuff, at how many people that just take their we were at Big Bear Cave, which is a campground in Buchanan, and there was a guy there from Chicago. His unit is parked there permanently. And I said, so why would you park this thing here permanently? And he said, I don't know, it's like $3,200 for the year. That's cheaper than property tax anywhere. And I thought, the guy's onto something.
It's his second home.
Yeah, it's his second home. He comes from the land of high property tax, and he's like, well, shoot, this is a better deal. I have all utilities and everything else included for less than the price of property tax. So I think quality of life, people are saying life is way too short. We've been faced and almost forced to talk about death more this year than ever before. If you look at certain political channels, you'll see at the bottom the death count and the death rate and the death. And so all of a sudden people are like, well, if that's inevitable, I want to live. I'm not going to get about the business of dying. I'm going to get about the business of living.
Okay, so financial planning is about the business of living. I
Yes.
mean, it really.
Come on.
I was talking to a client the other day and just reminding him, and I don't know, I get talking, guys. I talk a lot, and I was just talking about how financial planning isn't about greed and measuring some sort of material wealth. It's about freeing you up to live the life that you're called to and the life that you want to live, and making sure you've got your resources aligned with that life and that you've got freedom. And so this retiring is one of the biggest, maybe the biggest financial decision you're going to make in your life. And sometimes that decision is forced upon you. Hopefully that decision is elective. And like I said, when I launched this segment, my fear is that we've got all these swirling issues, and someone is saying, well, there's a backpack there. I bet there's a parachute in it. I'm grabbing it, and I'm making the leap. I'm retiring.
That's the thing, because if you get out to retirement age and you haven't made a whole lifetime of decisions to have yourself prepared, then to your analogy, you may be jumping out of the plane without the parachute. And to me, that the folks who are making a decision right now to retire, they're doing it, hopefully, with some sort of an assessment on their readiness. And to me, that the context of a financial plan, and specifically the retirement portion of your retirement plan, is where you're measuring and forecasting what is the sustainability of all my life's work. If I look at my life savings and all the sacrifices I've made, all the foundation I've laid, can this work for me for the rest of my life? That's what you got to figure out.
Right. So I would hope, because a lot of times what we find is folks will come in, they've never worked with a financial planner, and they say, hey, I'm ready to retire. Tell me I can do it. And that's fine. That's one way of doing it. my preference would be we want to start working with you when you're in your 40s, if that's at all possible, so that when you come in, you say, hey, I know if I retire today, this is the level of sacrifice that I'm going to be signing up for. Or I can retire today and I'm not having any sacrifice. We've worked with folks that have a greater lifestyle in retirement that they had while they were working. Yeah. So this is where I would want you to make the decision based on your plan. Like my plan says I can retire and now I'm ready, instead of saying I'm ready to retire, now show me a plan that says I can.
Let me say that a little bit differently. The folks that have reached out to us, where we've been doing the financial planning for them, comprehensive financial planning, they reach out to our CFPs this year and they've said, hey, I don't think I want to go back to work. I don't know if I can go back to work. I've been working from home. The company's starting to tell people to come back to the office. I feel uncomfortable. Can I retire? And the response is always, I hope so. Let me update your financial plan.
Right.
And you update the financial plan, and at least for many people, I've seen this because of the years and years, the compounding. You talk about from an investment standpoint, the magic of compounding. From a financial planning standpoint, the magic of compounding, working on that year over year over year, and the market rising, at least pretty much all of them that I've seen, and I don't serve as many clients, but it's like, it's 2 years before you thought. I've updated your financial plan. This can work. This can work. You're ready to be done. And now let's make sure we're making really, really smart decisions on income, where to draw Social Security, how much risk to take in your investments, what to do with health insurance. We're going to go through in just a moment all of these big decision points that you need to make. I told you earlier, this retirement decision, Josh said it as well, your retirement plan, that's one of 6 areas of your financial life. Choosing to retire impacts all 5 others. We're going to break that down and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Monologue in there.
So the interesting thing to me is the number of people that have showed up saying, I want to retire, so I need to help me with a plan. Okay, that's fine. But really, their presenting problem is, I want to retire and I'm not 65. So my problem to me feels like health insurance.
That is next week's program.
Right.
Next week's program.
So it feels like that's my problem. And then as you work through that, you say, how do we solve that one and get the rest of it to work? But really, there and because I'm thinking of several different folks that we worked with, there were things that we did to change their cash flow dramatically that took health insurance. Health insurance paled in comparison to the other things that we helped them with. So even though it was a presenting problem, they did need it solved. It needed to be solved, but that wasn't the best solve for them to give them the greatest traction.
But it felt like it to them. Health insurance it's a magnet for your attention right now when you're trying to retire.
Yeah, scary.
We're talking about it next week. All right, let's get into it. We can talk 5 factors, and we can, and it's 3rd segment. I'm assuming this will go into the 4th. So we can hit 5 factors quickly.
But we need to have a good ending point with this one for WFRN.
Yeah, and I can make that happen. I can force that to happen if it doesn't happen naturally.
So do you just want to talk about the 5 factors? Just make this segment 5 factors and then end it?
Oh, brilliant. I like it. Yeah, I'm good with that. Good with that. Brilliant.
That sounded sarcastic, but no, I think that's a great idea, Kevin.
It was my idea, of course.
All right. It seems as though that for many people right now that have the itch to retire, they want to retire. It seems that many of them it's happening before age 65, and health insurance is a big factor. There are 5 factors actually that go into, are you able to retire? We're going to hit those right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard, here with me in the Wise Money studio, Kevin Corhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. So go check that out. All right, so more and more people are getting the itch to retire for whatever reason. Many of them are looking at doing so before 65. Health insurance is a big variable there. We're talking about that on next week's program. What are your options for health insurance when you're retiring before 65? But what are the factors? How do you know if you're ready to retire?
Yeah, these 5 factors that you're referring to, you could think of these as 5 decision points that you have related to your retirement. It's 5 determinants, if you will, on whether or not you're ready to be able to retire. Sometimes we also refer to these as 5 different ways that you could make choices on the trade-offs with retirement. And it's your areas, it's the levers that you can pull to influence whether or not you're going to have a retirement success. And so I guess I would want you to hear that there's encouragement here. There's a lot of choice. There's a lot of control, or at least influence, that you can have on whether or not you're ready for retirement. And it begins with, how old are you going to be when you retire? And this is kind of the whole spirit of today's show. It's that there's a lot of folks who maybe thought they were going to retire further out at an older age, and now they're bringing that age up. They're shaving some years off, or maybe some months off of their working career, and essentially adding it on to their retirement period. So the reason that your age matters so much is it takes a lot more resources, a lot more planning to be able to retire at 62 compared to 65. That might sound like a pretty obvious statement, but a lot of people underestimate just how much more planning and preparation that takes. And it's all because you add 1 or 2 more years to your retirement segment of life, that phase of life, and it places more demands on your resources ultimately, because we're assuming the end of retirement is a fixed date. You retiring earlier doesn't mean that you're going to pass away earlier. So by retiring earlier, you're essentially extending the amount of time that your resources, your financial resources, have to stretch.
And that kind of leads into the second factor, which is spending. And yeah, you're going to be spending every year for the rest of your life. So you retire a touch earlier, that's more years of spending. Other variables in spending, again, what will health insurance cost in retirement? So pre-retirement, what's it look like? Pre-65, what's it look like? And at 65 and on, what's it look like? What's the inflation rate on that, right? You've got to factor all that in. Annual vacations, other sorts of expenses, the dream car sort of thing. What's your lifestyle going to be in retirement? And then let's, extrapolate that moving forward. If I could say probably the biggest drawback to these online calculators that you see for retirement, they don't factor in great numbers for inflation, health insurance, and other spending. They just do the quick and dirty, and they look and say, well, you'll probably spend a fraction of what you make today. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
They'll base it on 60% of your earnings before retirement or something like that. It's too generic.
That works perfectly for people that spend 60% of their pre-retirement income. Guys, that is just a quick and dirty. The decision, there's way too much at stake here. There's way too much at stake to just go easy button, done.
Right. One of the observations that I've had with a lot of clients here recently is through this whole shutdown period, through lifestyle being kind of thrown off and normal routines being disrupted because of coronavirus. A lot of people have just said, we're not doing the things that we once did. We're not spending as much money as we once did. And I've had many people say, we're realizing we don't need as much money to live comfortably like we once did.
I'm hearing that as well, but then you've got the 800-pound gorilla. You've got the Federal Reserve saying we're going to create inflation. Mm-hmm. By golly, we're creating inflation, right? So we haven't seen inflation in a long time, and you look and you say, yeah, TV 10 years ago was $1,000. I can get a pretty good TV today for $1,000, 800 even. But yeah, if you actually look at the data, inflation for the 6 months leading up to May of 2020 was a -1 or 2%. Inflation from the 6 months from May on was 4%. So I don't think that history has proven central banks cannot create inflation themselves. However, there's a heating up that's happened that there might be inflation. And so even though you might look and say, yeah, gosh, post-COVID life, I don't spend as much. We might see inflation actually come back to life.
That's exactly right. I mean, whatever you're used to spending, just assume that everything's going to get more costly into retirement. And this is probably one of the significant risks that you face when you start retirement is you crunch the numbers, you kind of work out a rough budget as you're thinking about entering retirement, and you think, yeah, we can live on $5,000 a month, no problem. And we've got $4,000 a month of income coming in. So all we got to do, we just got to tap into our investments for a couple $1,000s every month. This will be easy. And what you don't realize is that that $5,000 becomes $6,000, becomes $7,000 over time because of inflation. And the longer you're in retirement, the longer you're subjecting yourself to that inflation.
Which is why we want to start the planning process early. Because if you say, hey, I can live on 60% of my income, perfect. Let's do that for 2 or 3 years. Let's try this thing on and prove up the concept and make sure, hey, yes, this will work. I can do this.
Yeah. Connected to that is you've got an income issue. That's the third factor is what are your income sources in retirement? And those are getting squeezed. We've done a few shows on this. I don't know if you've noticed, but your savings account is paying nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. And you say, oh, well, that's because I maybe have a bad bank. No. Interest rates are terrible.
Yeah.
Everywhere. So if bonds used to deliver some sort of 4 or 5% rate of return, it's 1.5 or 2% right now. The best place to get income is either real estate, rental real estate, or it's stocks, the thing you don't want to own as much of in retirement. So you've got a real issue here, and then couple that with this challenges with Social Security. And I'm focusing on the negatives here, but it's an opportunity. What will your income sources be in retirement? That's the third factor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't have to have as large of a nest egg in order to supplement your streams of income if you've got a nice big pension from a great long career in a certain industry, or you've delayed Social Security as long as possible, and so you've really maximized that stream of income. If you plan to keep on working a little bit in retirement, all of that takes strain off of your nest egg and allows it to keep on growing even in the early years of retirement before you're really tapping into it for any meaningful dollar amounts.
The fourth is the area that people focus on. I'll speed this up here. The fourth is your nest egg, really. How much savings do you have? And then how much are you continuing to contribute to that savings over time? So therefore, what amount is that retirement nest egg? And the fifth area is how much risk or how much return could you expect from that nest egg? And so you can choose, nope, I don't like risk anymore. And if you say, this is a great example of how these 5 factors interrelate. If you say, I don't want to take risk anymore, that's going to mean you've got to work longer, spend less, have more retirement income, and have a bigger nest egg. So you've got to do comprehensive financial planning to see how this all fits together for your situation. All right, we've got a lot more to hit coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. What's that look?
That went long, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By about
5 seconds.
6 seconds. So I was trying to look up how much do the biggest gorillas weigh?
Jeez.
I think it's 800 pounds, isn't it?
I'm
Because they
sure-
always talk about the 800-pound gorilla.
I always thought it was a 900-pound gorilla.
Eastern gorilla.
Are those the silverbacks?
No, silverbacks are babies, man.
Oh, really?
200 pounds,
The
300 pounds.
What?
Western gorilla is 350. The Eastern gorilla is 330.
Okay, I've got one here, 600-pound gorilla.
How much did King
Eastern.
Kong weigh?
Adult male mountain gorillas may weigh up to 484 pounds. I'm still not getting the 800-pound gorilla anywhere.
Maybe there was one.
Well,
I
and
know
maybe-
that's a saying.
I don't know.
Biggest gorilla in the world ever? They're saying heaviest gorilla was a silverback that was shot in Cameroon. Oops.
Wait, Harambe?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
That was 683 pounds. So maybe there's a myth, like the. Leave a comment if you know if you're a gorilla enthusiast, where the saying 800-pound gorilla came from. Maybe in the jungles, gorilla stories are like fish stories here in the U.S.
It makes you question
I caught
whether
a fish so big it didn't even fit in the boat.
So here's my question: where does an 800-pound gorilla sleep?
wherever it wants.
All right.
That is correct.
All right.
Okay, so what's the last?
Do we want to talk about all 6 areas, or do we want to get to questions?
If this is a show about financial planning, I am tempted to just run through the 6 areas and say what are we seeing?
Yeah, I think so too. All right, let's do it. When you decide to retire, how does that impact the rest of your financial life? All 6 areas you've heard us talk about. We're going to break that down right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. You can do so online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then wherever you're at on social media, we are there as well. Just search the Wise Money Show and follow us and engage with the show there. Okay, so there's 6 areas in your financial life. Every week we tell you you've got to work with a certified financial planner. So CFP, there's education, ethics, the process sort of requirement there. But then make sure that your CFP is following a comprehensive financial planning process, right? Some CFPs can follow their process, but really just that leads to investments. They focus on investments or investment and retirement. No, all 6 areas of your financial life need to be considered together. You need to make decisions that bring synergy. And I don't know. I mean, this seems so obvious. No financial decision, in my opinion, is it more obvious that that's the approach you need to take than with retirement. I want to talk through all 6 areas of your financial life. How is each area impacted when you're deciding to retire? Let's just start at the top. Present financial position.
Present financial position is huge. It's one of the most important when you get to retirement, because if you have not mastered the skill of budgeting and controlling spending and prioritizing and resource allocation, all those fun things,
then you're going to fall victim to the favorite retirement phrase of grandmas across the world: I'm on a fixed income. I'm on a fixed income, right? But I mean, that's the phrase that my grandma uses, but it's really it's many people are surprised, wouldn't you say, when they get to retirement, they've got all this financial freedom and they realize, wow, I need a budget. I haven't updated a budget in years, and now I need one because I need to have that clarity.
Yeah. So a budget. I mean, the B word, it can be like a 4-letter word, but I would say just think of a budget as your friend. I mean, this is your friend. It's kind of your guiding light, if you will, to say, hey, yes, this is a good decision, or no, it's not. Because the question is, as I have folks that I'm talking to on a daily basis, I'll say to them when they ask, hey, can we do this or should we do this? I say, what's your decision-making process? And if you don't have a structure that almost makes the decision for you, you're going to be emotional. And as soon as you get emotional about your money, you lose.
Yep. Well, and, if we were to point to one habit that separates the confident retirees from the blindly hopeful retirees, to me, it is the control over their spending and knowing where the money's going. And maybe even years of proving that to themselves, that they've always been able to live within their means because they know how much is coming in, they know what their expenses are on the horizon, and they know which decisions they can postpone and put off to make sure the numbers keep on working. They've been doing it for often a lifetime. And so retirement's just an extension of that.
I mean, from a practical standpoint, present financial position is so crucial for your retirement because you're going to say goodbye to your paycheck. And you've got to replace your paycheck with something else. And why is that important? Because you've got bills to pay. You've got things you want to do. You've got that dream car you want to get. You've got that vacation you want to fund. You've got, all sorts of things. So it's Social Security. It's an income plan. It's how do you replicate your income or replace your paycheck in retirement? That's present financial position. And we also talked about maybe for a lot of people figuring out how to pay off debt or pay down debt in the early stages of retirement.
Yeah, that is key. What does my liability structure look like going into retirement? And I can't tell you how many folks in the last 3 or 4 months have done a refinance, have even done a cash out refinance to restructure their debts, their liability picture to get it to where it will work perfectly in retirement.
So that's the first area of your financial life, present financial position. The second is protection planning. And I mean, we could spend an entire show about how protection planning changes in retirement. Maybe we will. But let's hit it real quick. I mean, it's got the biggest variable in it.
Yeah, I mean, health insurance and long-term care insurance are two, I guess, problems that need to be solved as you enter into retirement. But we often, we'll get questions still on, do I need to keep paying premiums on these life insurance policies like I once did? Yep. Does anything need to change with my home and auto insurance? It really is just you envisioning how your protection, how the moat around the castle needs to be structured so that you don't have some unintended event, some unfortunate, health concern pop up and have it unravel your retirement picture.
Health insurance in retirement, that's probably the biggest focus. And we're going to be doing a whole show on that next week. What are your options when you're retiring early with health insurance? Long-term care, like you mentioned, figuring out life insurance. Yeah, Josh, I think you hit them all. Tax planning. You might be able to save up a whole bunch. That fourth factor of your retirement nest egg, you might look at that and say, yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I've got $1 million. Well, how much of that's actually Uncle Sam's, right? It might not be $1 million. You might have $700,000 because you got to give a bunch of that to Uncle Sam. Having a prudent tax strategy is critical. It's vital to your retirement. You want as much of that money for your purposes and as little towards the government. I don't know. For us, and this is KFG, this is not a commercial for our company, Korhorn Financial Group, but I love tax planning in retirement. It just gets more creative, and we can see the needle moved in tangible ways.
Yeah, I mean, you can back up and take tax planning and say, hey, we just hit protection planning and present financial position. Well, one of the big decisions you're making is what am I doing for medical insurance, especially if I'm retiring early, before 65, if you will. And so that could be, hey, am I using an HSA? Mike even found out an interesting factoid about using an HSA after you're 65.
Yeah.
So that not only that, but what else is affected with your this isn't necessarily tax planning, but I'm saying with your protection planning, and I meant to mention this when we were on that subject, protection planning, if you live in Michigan, your car insurance should probably change dramatically in what you're paying for it once you hit 65. So be talking to your certified financial planner about these things.
Tax planning, you've got Roth conversions you've got to consider. You've got distribution planning, right? If you say, well, I need to draw $3,000 out of my investments every month to replace my lifestyle, along with Social Security, that works. Well, does $4,000 actually need to come out of your investments because $1,000 needs to go to taxes? I mean, so you've got to figure that out. There's a lot there with tax planning. You're thinking about legacy, helping the kids. So investment planning, we've got we probably need to do a show about this. We've got heightened risk right now. The market's way up from where it was. And yet there's heightened risk right at a time where if we see a 40% pullback in the market, that's very personal to you if you're in retirement. So how do you structure your investments when you're in the distribution phase? I mean,
yeah, I'm glad you emphasize that you are in the distribution phase, which is fundamentally different than the accumulation phase. You've spent your entire working career just building strategies like automatic contributions. Autopilot savings is awesome when you're trying to build a retirement nest egg. When it comes time to start spending down some of that nest egg, autopilot selling is one of the worst things that you can do. It's so dangerous. And so to me, having a strategy for when and where are you going to go harvest money out of your hard-earned, hard-built nest egg to supplement your other sources of income in retirement, this is a very, very important thing that you have to have a philosophy on. You have to have a game plan for. It's probably one of the most important collaborative bits of work that you do with your certified financial planner as you go through retirement. It's when do you go sell, when do you go harvest money out of that nest egg?
And you've got some big investment decisions to make because likely you're rolling your 401k, your workplace retirement plan over to an IRA, and you've got to decide, how do I invest these dollars? Did you know a Roth 401k, you've got to take required minimum distribution from? RMD. It makes no sense.
That's dumb.
It's so dumb and it makes no sense. So listen, there's tons of reasons. That's a small one where you're going to retire. You're going to retire and then roll your 401k over to an IRA or a Roth IRA, whatever is prudent for you. So in that sense, that's an investment choice. You've got to decide, how do I invest these dollars? Retirement planning, that's what we're talking about. That's what we talked about today. You need that 5-factor retirement plan is what we call it, a 5-factor retirement plan that works. And that's stress tested, right? So, okay, the high-level plan, this is how much you have, this is the age you're going to retire, this is your life expectancy, how much you're spending, how much your income is, all the risk you're going to take, and the assumptions, blah, blah, blah. All 5 of those factors we already ran through, all put together, mixed together, stress tested, yes, this thing works, or no, it doesn't. Right.
If it doesn't, what are the adjustments and the changes that you can make? What are the areas that are within your control and your influence to improve the likely outcome of your retirement? Because finding out that your retirement isn't what you wanted it to be, yeah, that would be a bummer. But finding out that you have things that you could do differently to still improve upon the picture that you first saw, that's where the hope comes. That's where, you start making wise choices to move the needle in the right direction on your retirement outlook.
And then the last area, the 6th area of your financial life is estate planning. And I'm going to explain this one with a story. So I met with Carl recently, yesterday actually, and he's a single guy getting close to retirement and no kids. So we've been funding a 529 plan. Why? Because we did his retirement plan and it showed there's no way you're going to spend all your money. So we've been funding a 529 plan to get it out of his estate, to create a nest egg to his nieces, nephews, great nieces, great nephews. And then we looked at his overall net worth, and I told him, right now, you've got an estate tax exemption of $11 million. You're fine. But if that reverts back to $3.5 million, you're in a position where right now you're going to be paying estate tax, which is only 50%. And so as that evolves, as you're building up wealth, as you get closer and closer to retirement, we are going to be updating and enhancing and adjusting your estate plan. That's documents, that's legacy planning, that's tax planning, all connected within your estate plan. So you got to tie all those together. I mean, that's really the point, right, guys?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to face decisions along the way that have an impact in multiple areas of your financial plan. Even something just as simple as, hey, how are you going to pay for that next car that you purchase in retirement? Where are you going to pull the money from? What's the timing on it going to be? What will the tax ramifications be? That determines it's determined by which type of account you pull it from. And so you have to just recognize that as you make decisions, there is impact happening all over in your financial plan.
You need a CFP who's doing comprehensive financial planning, retirement decision. That decision impacts all areas of your financial life. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for being with us. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Korhorn, myself, and all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Korhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.